Girl who's here today, she's turning 8 today. Her name is Maeve, and she wanted to come to the march before starting her birthday celebrations. If only there were more adults with such a similar heart. So after 3, I'm going to ask you to sing happy birthday to Maeve. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maeve. Happy birthday to you. Yay! We are so proud of you, sweetheart. That wasn't at all embarrassing. So good afternoon, Islanders. Thank you so much for coming out today. And we're very lucky to have a very beautiful day. And as I say every time we meet, we might be a small group here in Jersey, but we are mighty. We add our voices to millions of humans of conscience around the world, shouting, enough! We will not stay silent as Israel attempts to exterminate the indigenous Palestinian people. With the full support of almost every Western government and their paid-for despot allies around the world. We are now 7 months into the most televised genocide in our history, and we have failed, friends, up until this point to halt it. But actually, in reality, we are not just 7 months in. We are in fact 76 years into these crimes against humanity. This Thursday just past, the 9th of May, we celebrated our Liberation Day. The day we honour those who fought and resisted so that we could be free. But this coming Wednesday, the 15th of May, Palestinians will be remembering that 76 years ago, their Nakba, the great catastrophe that has never stopped, started. Just 3 years and 6 days after we were liberated. Just think about that for a minute. 3 years and 6 days after we were liberated. The wholesale ethnic cleansing and incremental genocide of Palestine commenced, leading us to this dark moment in our history, the genocide of the Palestinian people. Something that will unfortunately be remembered as one of the great crimes of our century. In the first few months of the European settler colonialist state's so-called Declaration of Independence, 155 massacres of Palestinians took place. Over 500 villages were razed to the ground. 750,000 Palestinians were expelled, never to return. Many of those now living in the hellhole that has become Gaza are descendants of those expelled from these villages. So let nobody tell you that this started on the 7th of October, because they are lying. In the same way, Nat Turner's brutal and bloody slave result was a consequence of centuries of brutal oppression and enslavement. The violent explosion on the 7th of October was a consequence of 8 decades of brutalization of the Palestinians by the Zionist regime. This is not about justifying specific acts, because I, for one, abhor violence. But it is about understanding cause and effect, and that violence begets violence. It is vital that we understand this, because every single time we call out Israel, its supporters will come back to that date. They will try to gaslight us into accepting them as the victims and the only victims. They will use this date, as that was when the clock started, as a get out of jail free card, and we must not accept this narrative. There can be nothing that Israel says that justifies the attempted annihilation of a civilian population of which over half are children. So, returning to our Liberation Day, why is it that we celebrate it? We celebrate it because we were liberated from 5 years of occupation, 5 years of oppression, 5 years of our rights being denied and violated, 5 years of islanders being sent to concentration and death camps for being Jewish, or for sheltering Russian slave workers, or for resisting in whatever way that they could. That is why we celebrate our liberation. And it is also why on that day we honour the sacrifices that our grandparents made, many making the ultimate sacrifice, giving up their lives so that we could be free. So when people condemn us, whether locally, nationally, or internationally, for coming out, for protesting, through the boycott, divest and sanctions campaign, through blocking boats, occupying arms factories and destroying their machines of death, through building encampments at universities, through refusing to take part in the very, very political Eurovision Song Contest, or booing at contestants of states that should not be treated as anything other than they are, a genocidal pariah state. Let us remember what it took for us to be freed. Let us remember, for us to be freed from those 5 years of occupation, the acts of resistance that it required in Europe. And I say to those who tell us that it was inappropriate that we flew the flag on our Liberation Day, there could be no better way to honour our grandparents' sacrifice than to use the day to fly the flag and raise awareness about another occupied and oppressed people who, let's be honest guys, whose experience makes ours look like a pleasant walk in the park. And if you have a problem with the Palestinian flag flying and not the Ukrainian flag that has been flying all around our islands, including churches, for the past 2 years, then let's be honest regarding what this is about. You are either wholly ignorant or you are racist. And you believe that only people who look like you should have the rights, the fundamental rights of all humans, freedom, justice and equality. So I say to you now, sit down. So, my fellow islanders, my friends, this is the most pertinent question of today, and the hardest one. How do we end this genocide? Well, as our leaders have failed us, it is down to all of us as ordinary folk, every single one of us, to help build that critical mass, which we can do. We must double down on our efforts and find others to join us. Maybe those who we know have been wavering in the sidelines, knowing it's wrong but not yet having the courage to do anything, and helping them to find that courage. We must use our voices. We use our buying power. We use our platforms. We must boycott Israel, encourage divestment, and we must continue to pressure our elected representatives, reminding them of who put them in their positions, why they have that office, and we ask them to pressure the UK government to sanction Israel, just as they did Russia. So, friends, turn up at their surgeries, write to them, organise appointments with them, and ask them what are they going to do about it. And then I ask you to support others taking the lead, whether organisations or individuals. But as I say all of these things, I do recognise that from all of us it takes courage, and more than that, it requires endurance. But we must dig deep, my friends. We must be resolute and recognise that bravery is not about the absence of fear, it is the triumph over it. If we truly want this great horror to end, then our resolve to end genocide and the very worst of settler colonialism must be stronger than their resolve to commit it, to enable it, or to give cover to it. And in terms of those already referenced, which includes local columnists who I won't mention, and their regular diatribes in our local media, let us all remember with confidence that just as collaborators with our occupiers in our islands were damned by history, so will the collaborators, the enablers, the apologists of this great war against humanity. And we who have been smeared, targeted, threatened, and lost our jobs, threatened with losing our jobs, lost contracts, lost platforms, etc., etc., etc. We will be celebrated as those before us fighting against the great injustices of history. When we understand the power that we truly have as a collective, then friends, we become unstoppable. Together we will bend that arc until justice is achieved. Know this now, that in the future, I feel it in my bones, we have already won. Zionism is already defeated. And in achieving that, we have not only liberated the Palestinian people, suffering genocide, apartheid, occupation and settler colonialism, and now genocide. Not just liberated the Jewish community, who are being used as a human shield for a doctrine of ethno-supremacy, but we will have also liberated ourselves. As the great hero, once also smeared as a terrorist, Nelson Mandela alluded to, none of us are truly free until we all are. So, we are humanity rising. Stand strong, stand strong, stand proud, and be on the winning side! I now have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Palestinian student Siham to come to the stage and to speak about her own personal experiences. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, Natalie. That was an amazing.
Sorry, we're having technical problems with the battery.
I think it's working. Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Siham and I'm a Palestinian-born law student based in the UK. I was born in Ramallah, a city with a complex history within the present-day settler colonial state of Israel. I grew up as a Palestinian of 48, a term used to describe Palestinians who live within Israel's 1948 borders. I have family living in various parts of Palestine, including Gaza and the West Bank. And I myself lived in the West Bank for a short while, where the struggle for survival and the quest for identity are deeply intertwined. This dual reality informs my activism and drives my efforts to raise awareness about the Palestinian experience. My presence here today is a reminder to you all that the struggle for freedom and identity continues for Palestinians, and that solidarity from the global community is essential in achieving freedom, equality and justice for all. I read to you now my speech, which I named A Call for Freedom. Dear Jersey, I see your smiles on the 9th of May. I see your joyful faces as you chant Happy Liberation Day. And I, along with you, smile at the mention of freedom. The freedom that we all as people deserve to see. The freedom that is a fundamental right to us as human beings. The freedom that I wish for every man, woman and child. Unfortunately, that freedom is not offered the same across the globe. We live in a society that dictates the level of freedom you get based on the color of your skin, the number on your bank account, the family you belong to, or the political agenda you serve. The people of Gaza do not serve the political agenda of the corrupt politicians who rule our world, be it the West or the Middle East, nor does their skin match the color that this society has prescribed human. They are seen as animals by the occupation and treated even worse. No human should ever live to see hunger so bad that they are eating grass, especially not when it is at the hands of others who call themselves human. I refer to none other than the politicians who provide the weaponry and the ones who administer it. I refer to the celebrities who dress up in their gowns and attend an event while children get bombed in their beds. Their silence is not only complicit, but the trigger that wipes out entire bloodlines. Can you even imagine what it means for an entire bloodline to be wiped out? For your family name to never again be mentioned anywhere but the death books that are written or on whatever makeshift grave that people burying you can scrap together, only for your grave to be raided and your organs taken to grow a society that will only continue to kill you. in Gaza right now. June 1944, after D-Day, I'm sure you know what happened to the people of Jersey. I'm sure you know about the food and the water that ran out, and the electricity and the gas that failed, and the water that was only pumped at intervals. It's hard to imagine something like that happening today, except it is. Gaza is where the world's worst atrocities have gathered to play poker with people's lives as collateral. From the apartheid regime of South Africa to the racial discrimination that plagues our world. Gazans, Palestinians have seen it all. Can you bear to see your child hungry? No? Can you bear to see your child not breathing? Can you bear to see their organs coming out of their tiny body and hold their little broken bones in your arms? No one, I repeat, no one should ever have to go through that. I have seen comments saying, not here, not our problem. If they didn't want to die, then they shouldn't have been born a terrorist. This dangerous ideology is harmful not only to the people of Gaza, but to the idea of liberation all over the world. You cannot say you stand for freedom unless you stand for freedom of all people. Then it does not become fighting for equality or freedom. It becomes fighting for privilege. And the problem with privilege is that someone else needs to suffer for you to have it. And one day, the person suffering may very well be you. I wish not to see children dying in a higher power's effort to take land. I wish not to see human life be so easily disregarded because of money that is being made at the expense of the blood of innocent people. I wish one day to live in a world where people can call on their empathy to say, no, we will not let this happen. To say, no, we will not let this happen. We will not let people die. If you value freedom, then do not stand by as it is taken away from someone else. Stand up and fight so that you can look at your children in the eye in the future and tell them I fought for what was right. I did not see people suffering and stay silent. I rose against the indiscriminate violation of human rights and I was on the right side of history. Keep talking about Palestine. Keep talking about Palestine. Keep talking about Palestine and never let your freedom or anyone else's be taken away. I leave you today with a poem I wrote for my aching homeland. يا بلدي يا نور قلبي وجميع أفكاري إذا بكيت من أجلك فإن دمعتي لا تكفي وإذا دعيت من أجلك فإن دعائي لن ينتهي لكن إذا بكيت سوف أبكي بحرا لك وإذا دعيت سوف أدعي لك قبل نفسي قلبي مجروح من أجلك ولكن ألمي لا يمكن مقارنته بألمك ألم 1000 سنة ألم أخت وأخ ألم أم وأب ألم جدة وجد ألم لا يمكن إخفاؤه بسبب ثقله لهذا الألم سوف أبكي وإذا بكائي ساعدك لبكيت لك كل ماء جسدي. The translation reads, my homeland, the light of my heart and the majority of my thoughts. If I cry for you, then my tear is not enough. And if I pray for you, then my prayer will not end. But if I cry, I will cry an ocean for you. And if I pray, I will pray for you before myself. My heart hurts for you, but my pain cannot compare to your pain. The pain of 1,000 years, the pain of a sister and a brother, the pain of a mother and a father, the pain of a grandmother and a grandfather, pain that cannot be hidden because of its heaviness. For this pain I will cry, and if my tears helped at all, I would cry for you all the water within my body. Thank you.